Thank you to Darien Library for offering this. The Caregiver Café is amazing. We were talking earlier about how libraries are incredible resources in communities. And so this is just another example of how libraries support the well-being of everyone in communities. So some of you know me. It's great to see familiar faces. And for those that don't, my name is Erica Long, and I'm with Community Mindfulness Project. And so we offer meditation and mindfulness programming in all sorts of different venues to help support the well-being of members of the community. And our website is communitymindfulnessproject.org. Lots of guided meditations on there, book recommendations, and other resources. So feel free to check that out. What I thought we would do today is offer some tools that can be woven into our day to help support our well-being as we care for ourselves and as we care for others. And we'll talk a little bit about the science behind them, and then we'll take them for a test drive. There's a second program, which is going to be Tuesday, June 22nd at 7 p.m. And we'll do separate practices and tips and tools during that time than what we're doing now. So it'll be complementary to this. So there are a couple of guiding principles for our time together today. The first one is that this is your time. This is going to be your experience. And so there are no shoulds involved in anything that we're going to do today. There's no particular way anything should feel or should unfold. And this is a time of letting go of self-judgment too, and just letting things be as they are and allowing. So that's really important. So I thought what we might do to start off is just spend a little bit of time creating this sense of community, sort of imagining ourselves if we're sitting in a circle together, supporting each other in this moment. And one way that I thought that we could do this is if we could go around the circle, and what we'll do, and I'll because on Zoom, it's a little hard to have a circle. Each of our screens looks a little bit different. And so I'll sort of direct it around the circle as I see it on my screen, if that's okay. So what we'll do is we'll collectively all take a nice big deep breath in and out together. And as we're doing that, we'll notice what it feels like in the body to take that nice big deep breath in and out. Maybe notice where we feel it most, etc. And then each of us, as we go one by one, it'll be collectively the group taking a big breath in and out. And then let's say it's my turn to go, then I'll say my name. And I'm going to mention one thing that I'm grateful for today. And each of us can maybe pause and notice if that resonates with us and what it feels like if it does resonate with us. One fun thing to try to do is to try to not repeat something that somebody else has said before. But if you feel like you're having a hard time remembering if something was said, don't worry about it. Just say whatever is coming to you. And so we'll just go around the circle like that. So I'll kick off just to give an example. So we can all take a nice big deep breath in and out. So my name is Erica, and I'm feeling really grateful for technology that helps me to feel connected with you all today. Nice deep breath in and out, and notice if there's any resonance with that as other people sort of bring to mind and to heart family in this moment. So one of what we've just done is we've actually just combined 3 different tools for helping ourselves to really connect and support our well-being. And so what we can do during our day, there's this thought, I think, out there that a lot of times meditation and mindfulness needs to be done in perfectly quiet spaces, where there are no interruptions and you can sit cross-legged for like 30 minutes. And that's not the case at all. What we can do is we can weave small practices many times into our day. So what we've just done is we've incorporated nice diaphragmatic breathing, as well as a connection between the mind and the body. And then also a recognition of what we're grateful for. So backing up a little bit, diaphragmatic breathing is when we take a really nice deep breath in and out, and we're allowing our diaphragm to move up and down against our spine. And as we do that, we're massaging something called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it sort of runs all along our torso down into the lower parts of our body. And so it carries information in two directions, both down into the body and from the body up into the brain. So when we take these really deep breaths and the diaphragm moves up and down against the spine, it massages that vagus nerve, and it sends a message into the base of our brain back here, the amygdala, that says, in this moment, I am safe enough. So very often when we're caring for others, we can the mind can begin to think of all the things that can go wrong or that are going wrong. These deep breaths, it can really help us to have a sense of, actually, there are some ways where I'm safe right now in this moment. And so when we were taking those deep breaths, and also when we had mentioned something that we felt grateful for, we were noticing what was going on in the body. And when we are worried about things or struggling with challenges in our lives, very often we live up here in the mind. And so the mind is a great sort of threat detector. That's really what it does. It generates thoughts and detects threats. But the body is a great way for us to come back and reconnect with what's actually happening in this moment. And so as we take that nice deep breath and we notice where we feel it in our body, we're connecting our mind and our body. And then when we connect with a blessing in our life, something that we feel grateful for, we are offsetting our evolutionary development that led the brain to be very focused on potential threats and to ignore those things in our lives that we know don't pose a threat. And so our brain consumes so much energy that it evolved to conserve energy. And it does that by saying, oh, that beautiful rose bush outside my door that's about to blossom, I don't actually need to pay attention to it because it's not a threat. But in doing that, we're getting a rather skewed view of what is available to us, the blessings in our life, the reality of our lives. And we're much more aware of threats or potential threats than we are of all the blessings that we have. So, but just by bringing to mind some of the blessings in our life. So as we went around the circle, for those of you just joining us, we all just shared, we took a nice deep breath together, and then we shared our name. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share. And so the other thing that we had mentioned briefly before that I'd like to reiterate is that these tools can be woven into the day. There's an expression in mindfulness, which is many small moments, many times. And so as we're looking to support our well-being, very often something that can happen is when we talk about wellness or caring for ourselves, we can feel like this is becoming just one more thing on our list of things to do in a day that is already too busy. And so we can set that notion aside and instead just think about the small ways. The big ones are great too. But we can also bring small practices and weave them into our day as we move through our day. So recapping so far, small moments many times, nice deep breaths to let us know, to send a signal to our brain that we're safe enough in this moment, connecting with the body so that we have a sense that, oh, in this moment, we have a facilitator for CMP who has this wonderful expression. She cares for her mom. And when the worries sort of pile up and it feels really fraught in a moment, she just says to herself, is my hair on fire right now? And it's a great way of just checking in the moment and saying, oh, the mind is envisioning all these things. Let me come back to my breath in my body and just notice what's actually happening right now. And one of the things that happens when we pay attention to the present moment is that we have a sense of how it can shift from moment to moment. And so very often when we're worried about something, maybe it's the person that we're caring for and what their well-being looks like, what our own well-being might look like. These concerns can take on a shape that feels really big and solid and permanent. And so as we reconnect with our body and with our breath, we can begin to have a sense of, in this moment, things can shift. Things aren't as solid or as permanent as they feel. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue. Colleen, was there something you needed to say? Are you okay? All right. So on that note, what I'd love to do is just bring in this concept of tuning into our emotions. And so very often, when we are caring for others, we can very much be in a triage mode where there's a list of things that we need to take care of to navigate through the day for their care and our care. And so we may be moving from one thing on that list to the next thing to the next thing. Or we may be very focused on how they're doing versus how we're doing. So whether or not we pay attention to emotions, they are there in our body. They're there, they show up in our bodies, and they're there whether we pay attention to them or not. When we actually tune into them and we acknowledge them and we pause to recognize them, we can sort of process them a little bit more. And there's always some wisdom there for us. So the big question, we were talking about this last week at a session, and a gentleman raised the question about emotions. Well, if I tune into my uncomfortable emotions, won't that just make me feel more uncomfortable? Which is a great question. What we find sometimes, and everybody has their own experience with this, is that as we turn our attention towards something that's uncomfortable, instead of it actually becoming more uncomfortable, it loses its grip on us a little bit and becomes a little bit more manageable, and we can hold it in a little bit more perspective, and we can see it as the shifting experience that it really is. And the other saying that goes with this, there are two sayings that I think are really helpful. One is, to name it is to tame it, which is that if we can pause in the moment and we can say, how am I doing right now? How am I really doing in this moment? And we can allow whatever's there for us to be seen and heard. And then if we want to, we can name it. We can get very specific with it. So we can say, well, I noticed that there's fear there, or there's concern there, or even some of our really, really uncomfortable emotions like guilt or shame can be really hard for us to feel in the body. When we name those and we say, oh, I can feel that this is here for me right now, it's almost like they kind of go, like there's a relaxing around them, and the moment can shift a little bit. So we can be very specific around how we name them, or we can just say, this is uncomfortable, comfortable or uncomfortable. We may decide that when we check in, we're really at peace. or we're really at joy because of the sunshine that's streaming in through the window. And it's equally important to pay attention to those emotions. So we may say, oh, I'm feeling great joy in the body, or I'm comfortable right now. So we can get as specific as we want with naming. So to name it is to tame it. And then the other one is what we resist persists. And so if there's an uncomfortable emotion for us, I'm seeing some acknowledgement and some nodding. If there's something that's uncomfortable for us and we're pushing it away, it's really not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay there with us. And so that creating that habit and that sense of comfort and competency with turning towards what's going on for us and acknowledging it can be really, really important. So there are a couple of things that I've learned about emotions that have really helped me do this with a greater level of confidence. One is that emotions are very temporary events for us. And so they typically last between 60 and 90 seconds. So again, we were talking before about how something feels solid and permanent. When we actually begin to tune into our emotions, we notice that they do shift. Like in one moment, there might be great heartache. And in the next moment, if there's the bud on the cherry tree outside that catches our eye, we may actually feel ourselves shifting a little bit from heartache towards wonder or towards joy. And the heartache may come back. But what we're beginning to notice is that it's not one solid, block of something. It's shifting and it's porous in its nature, which can really help us to be with these things. And the other thing that I've learned about emotion, which I really, really love, is this idea that in Spanish, the word, and for those of you that speak Spanish, you'll have to make sure I'm doing this right. But there are two verbs that express to be in Spanish. One is ser and one is estar. And so ser explains a sense of permanence. So like my name is Erica. So I might use that verb, yo soy Erica, right? I am Erica. I am me. But I would use a different verb, the verb estar, to explain how I'm doing emotionally. It's the same verb that's used to explain weather because it's a temporary phenomenon. And I just wish in English that we had that same differentiation, because very often I think what our habits are to say, I am happy, which even if it's a beautiful, wonderful, comfortable emotion, it's important to know that we won't always be happy, right? That life is full of ups and downs. Or I am angry, we begin to define ourselves as this is the sort of person that I am. And so since we don't have that language in English, that differentiation, what I love to suggest is instead of saying, I am this, we can say, I feel this right now. I am feeling this in this moment. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who was a pioneer of nonviolent communication, would use another phrase for this is, what is alive in me right now? And that can shift from moment to moment. So I'm offering that up. And I thought what we could do in this moment, and it may be hard for people that are multitasking right now, but just as we went around the circle earlier, inviting people to go around the circle and take a nice deep breath. And only when you're done exhaling, then to ask yourself, how am I right now? And if you're comfortable sharing it out to the group, share out to the group how you're doing. And we can just go around one by one. And so it might look something like this. So I'm going to take a nice breath. Not rushing through the breath, not thinking about what I might say, but breathing. And then saying to myself, how am I right now? I am a little bit anxious that people are finding this helpful, to be honest. So I'll share that. Thank you so much for everything that you just shared, like the vulnerability and your openness. I'm celebrating that. Thank you. It's really a gift to everyone. Everyone's sharings are a gift to this group as we sit together in this virtual circle, and laughing too, because my kids don't think in the morning. I have a very nice calming voice. It's there are so many emotions, right, that we can feel and we can sense into the sense of overwhelm to some extent, right, when we're the caregivers for others. And so honoring that and allowing it to be, instead of pushing it away, and celebrating sort of how people are connecting with what they know soothes them. One of the wonderful human skills that we have to build from our very earliest age is that ability to self-soothe in ways that are healthy for us. So I thought what we would do now is a practice that is based, and those of you that have been to community mindfulness sessions have heard me talk about this many, many times. It was really helpful for me to learn the science behind what I'm about to talk about. And it supports me as I'm needing to care for others. And it has, for the people that shared it with me, have told stories about how it has how it has helped them. And then others have come back and said, this is how I was able to use that. So let me just share it instead of just talking about it. As we were sharing how we're all feeling, I'm not sure if other people could sort of sense into what others were expressing. Like, as Holly was talking about, what she's feeling, and Sharon's talking about the sense of overwhelm or fatigue, or Thelma's talking about joy, all of this, right? We might have felt in ourselves those same emotions that others were expressing. Like we could connect and empathize with that experience. So that ability as a human being to connect through emotion with others is called empathy. And it is an absolutely essential human connector. Without it, I don't know that we would have survived as a species. And so empathy is when we sense and feel in our own bodies what we think someone else is experiencing. Now, what happens when we do that is, if it's an uncomfortable emotion or experience, let's say that we see someone who's really struggling with something, incredible sadness, for example, and our heart might break, the pain center in our brain lights up as if we were experiencing that same pain. And it's a beautiful thing to allow us to connect with others, and it's incredibly depleting. And so what we can do is we can move from that sensing what somebody else is feeling into wishing for an end to their struggle, wishing for them a sense of peace and ease, for example, or wishing for them that they know that they are loved and cared for and supported. And that act of moving from witnessing struggle to wishing for an end to struggle causes a huge, what I think of as like a miraculous event in the mind and the body, in the brain and the body. So it releases serotonin, which is the anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. It releases dopamine, which is called the pleasure chemical, but it's really related to learning and memory and motivation. It helps us to feel good when we're doing something that's good for us. And then also it causes the release of oxytocin, which is the human bonding compound. So it helps us to feel connected with others. The end result is we move from being depleted to feeling much more resourced and able to sort of keep on doing what we need to do. And so I thought what we would do today is go through a compassion practice and offer ourselves this opportunity to resource ourselves. Before this will be a little bit of a longer practice. We've done very informal practices until this point. This will be a little bit more of a more formal, longer practice. Before we do it, are there any questions? Your point about humans is really interesting, and there are a couple of pieces of neuroscience that I think are fascinating. One of which is that our ability to be altruistic, we can't access our sense of altruism when we have a sense that our needs are not met. Where I was talking about this with my kids last night, we were exploring why teenage girls are so hard to be around, right? Like my daughter who's 20 now, apologizes for her 12-year-old self. It's hysterical. And so we're talking about, well, there's so many changes going on in a teenage girl's body that it's really hard for them to feel safe. And unless they have that sense of safety and needs met, altruism is not a door that's been unlocked for them in that moment. And so thinking about our cultures and our societies, the more we can help every member of our society feel seen and heard and with their needs met, the more that will unlock altruism in society as a whole. And the neuroscience behind altruism is so beautiful that when we're kind, it actually releases dopamine, which I had talked about before, that pleasure chemical. Because the brain is designed to help us convince us to do the things that we should be doing that are good for us, and then stay away from the things that are not, right, good for us. But we've got some competing things going on. We've got the brain that is a great threat detector. So we're constantly aware of how our needs are not being met. So evolutionarily, we're probably more aware than other animals for what's going wrong, what could go wrong, which might make altruism a little bit more difficult. But there is this mechanism that says when we're kind, we feel good. So let's be kind again. And the person that witnesses kindness or receives kindness also feels good and is motivated to be kind. So every single day, no matter how hopeless we're feeling about what's going on in the world, every little time we can smile at someone or offer a kind word, we know that we're dropping a pebble in a pond that may just continue to spread out and out. So that can help us to feel a little bit less helpless, right, in the enormity of the world. So thank you for that. So as we do this next practice, the invitation, because I'm going to invite you, if you want to close your eyes or to cast your gaze down. You don't have to. You can be looking out the window if that's bringing you joy in the moment. But it's a little bit of a chance to turn inward. And as we do this, if you're more comfortable turning your camera off, know that that's very much invited. And you might even want to push the screen away from you if you're feeling like there's been a lot of screen time. So here we go. So inviting you to take a position that allows you, I like to think of it as allowing myself to feel like regal, like what I'm doing is worthwhile. And so you might notice what shape your body takes when you invite it to have a sense of being regal. You might want to begin to notice what it feels like to sit with this sense of value in what you're doing. And really, it's value in how you're being. Take a moment to notice the breath. And having a sense of being and breathing in this body, in this moment, not needing to do anything else for this moment. Even just taking one breath at a time and saying, for this one breath, I don't need to be doing anything else for this one breath. And now inviting you to bring to mind someone you know who may be struggling in some way, large or small. Maybe taking a moment to see the world through their eyes. Being very gentle with yourself as you do this. And noticing what it might feel like in the body to hold this person in your attention and the awareness of their struggle. And really, it's as if this holding of this experience is being done with two hands, gently cupped hands with great tenderness. We're holding our own experience and their experience together with great tenderness, allowing it to be. You may be noticing any emotions that are present for you in this moment as you do this. And now inviting you to offer a wish for peace and ease to this person. And you may want to use phrases like, may you be at ease. May you have a sense of peace in your body. May you feel loved, cared for, and supported. So for the next few moments, with each breath offering out a wish to whomever it is that you've brought into your heart. If the mind wanders at all to problem solving or analysis or to-do lists, we can smile and know that that's what the mind does. And the whole rest of the day can be the purview of the mind. And in this moment, we come back to the heart and offer out that wish for peace and ease to this person that we care so deeply about. May you feel loved and cared for and supported. May you be free from fear. May there be blessings and joy in your life. And we can become familiar with what it feels like to hold this person in our heart and offer them a wish for peace and ease. And this getting familiar with this may help us to stay in the moment throughout our day when we're witnessing their struggle or when concern for them pops up. We can pause and offer this wish for peace and ease. And now letting the image or felt sense of their presence fade a little bit. And noticing if there's something that is causing a struggle for you. It could be something as small as technology or something larger, but be gentle. Checking in the body to see how it feels to bring this into awareness, this struggle into awareness. And then we can offer ourselves a gesture of compassion. That can be placing one hand on our heart and the other on top of that. We're placing our hands on our cheeks or on our forehead. And noticing what it feels like to offer ourselves this gesture of compassion. You can explore and invite and acknowledge any emotions that are present. Maybe saying, in this moment, I am feeling whatever it is. Or even naming the emotion and saying, I see you, I hear you. And if we find that the mind wants to wander off into stories about whatever is here for us right now, we can Smile and just come back to the felt sense in the body, the feeling of the hands on the heart or the face, the rise and fall of the sternum as we breathe. And this active wish for our own well-being, may I be at peace. May I feel at ease in mind and body. May I feel loved, cared for, and supported. And then offering this wish out to everyone that's on this session today, to our virtual circle here. We can imagine that we're all sitting in a circle facing each other, offering each other a wish for peace and ease. May we all be at peace. May we all feel cared for, loved, and supported. And then we can imagine that our circle, we all turn and face outwards. And we shine this wish for peace and ease out to the four corners of the world. Struggle is a part of the human experience, and every one of us goes through it. And may we all feel connected and cared for. May we all feel seen and heard and valued. May we all live in peace. So at your own time, if you've been still, you might want to gently bring some movement back into the body. I really love putting my hands on my face, on my forehead. You do whatever feels good to you. It might be a stretch, might be standing up and stretching. And if the eyes have been closed, you can open them and take a really sort of kind-hearted gaze around your surroundings. And if the camera's been off and you feel comfortable, inviting you to turn it back on if you want to. And the floor is open for sharings or reflections. And also, if you wish to stay in stillness, that's perfectly wonderful. So, Community Mindfulness Project, which is our website is communitymindfulnessproject.org, offers 8 sessions free and open to the public every week by Zoom and by conference call, and 1 session in person at New Canaan Library outside on the lawn on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock. And on our website, there are recordings of compassion, self-compassion, breathing meditation. There are discussions that explain the science behind all of them and why and how we can do them. So those are all available. I can put it in the chat. There'll be another one of these sessions where we'll do some different tips and techniques on June 22nd at 7 p.m. Thanks to wonderful Darien Library. So, yeah.
Thank you to you. We're so happy to have you back.
Yeah.
I wish it could be in person. Hopefully we can start getting some things like New Canaan outside. We'll see what happens.
We will wait to hear from you, and we'll be there when you're ready. How was the compassion piece for people? How was it to offer yourself compassion? Did anybody find it was new and different? I find it's as caregivers, we're very often more focused on others and don't necessarily take the time just to give ourselves a gesture of care. It's resonating with me because I brought to mind one of my children who was having a tough day today. And until this point, I'd sort of been wrestling with wishing he weren't having a tough day and wanting to problem solve it. And instead, just that sitting there and saying, oh, I hope your day goes better. Same thing, it felt a little bit less anxious. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'm so grateful to all of you for being here, because it's wonderful to feel like we're sitting together and being together and supporting each other. So thank you for showing up for yourselves and for showing up for everybody that was here. I'm appreciating that. So on the website, there is there's a button or a menu that says library. And in the library, there are lots of recordings, and all you have to do is click on them and hit play, and you can listen to them there. Everything from short 5-minute ones to do before going to sleep if you want, all the way up to 45-minute ones. And there are a couple that are young adult ones too that are very short, but I have to say adults that do them actually really like the young adult ones. So just because it says young adult, try them anyway, maybe. And they're the voice of a young adult. Those are really those are great for teens, recorded by a teen, really designed in language for a teen.
Thank Erica and all of you for joining today. Hope to see you back on the 22nd of June. And please look at Erica's website, Community Mindfulness Project. Honestly, great resources there.
Thank you. So good to see you.